Good morning. We have a request to remind everyone about keeping the silence, keeping the quietness that is reflective of the silence. It really does facilitate the journey and kind of catalyze it and emphasize. And it's easy to kind of want to express, especially like if it's Wisdom of Joy retreat, and you're like, oh, just had this realization and it's bubbling. And I mean, I get it. I get the want to move outward. But there's wisdom. There's wisdom to keeping quiet, and it brings kind of the focus, the orientation from the me to the we, And we could all use some of that. So, if we can all do our best to stay quiet, especially in the shrine room, unless it's something you really need to say. I mean, like Ani and I are whispering, but not conversations and that kind of thing. So, did anybody have anything they need to bring forward this morning before I get going? Okay. So, Ani and I, when we come together to teach, we both find it interesting and fun that we're using different words and coming from different perspectives to say the same thing. But I did kind of have somebody say, I've never heard the word creator used in a Dharma talk. So I do understand that, the languaging here could be very different than what you're used to, which I actually think is really good for all of us. Because I feel like sanghas tend to get into this really rigid, this is what we're talking about and the words mean this. And I always try to mix it up a little bit, honestly. But I also kind of never know what's going to come out. So I understand that maybe confusion or disorientation or possibly rebellion, who knows? If you're like me, I might rebel against that word. Here, in this case, the awakenedness, the shift in self, in perspective, in orientation, in the revolution of seeing happened in cattle country in Eastern Oregon without any prior studying. So the words are kind of like, they were what was generated. And then I went out to find Sangha because that's what you need. You all know that. And Aja was speaking the language, so it was like, oh. And then I met Sharon, and she was very, very nurturing and a mentor and a teacher and a sister who was having who was out ahead, leaving the breadcrumbs, yes, sweetheart, I've been there, just keep going. So I was lucky that way, but the original languaging of the experience that can't really be called an experience was just sort of, I don't know, freewheeling cowgirl. I don't know what to say. So it can be, what is she talking about? But like I said, Ani, Lodro, and I, we have fun doing that, and seeing the similarities and the synthesis of, like Sharon was saying yesterday, the direct path, Somebody was bringing forward the form and the wildness, like a river isn't a river without banks, right? It's just a flood. So it might be disorienting, and I think that's good. I kind of have a mind to throw chaos in wherever I can anyway. It's one of those traits. So with that, I thought I might just do, I think there must be like some old school, like churchy thing here. It wasn't in this lifetime because I grew up on a cattle ranch where work was our dogma, but I like the readings before a reading from da-da-da. This is just something that came forward this morning that I think might help me get started. We have to be willing to come with an open heart and an open mind. A willingness to make peace with whatever stage, phase, description we are currently experiencing. A willingness to dwell in and as mystery. There is an innocence, a mysteriousness beyond conceptualization, memory, and conditioned notions of cause and effect that shines in consciousness as joy. When we are willing to let coming and going play out very freely, there is the opportunity to directly encounter this joy. The heart of being is shining as compassion, joy, and beauty. Existence itself is absolute love. It's absolute love. It exists purely and only out of love for itself. All expressions existing in and as the natural way, the natural innocent condition, beyond the belief in division, exemplify the glory and majesty of love. I'll probably start crying. Embodied indivisibility can never be divided, has never been divided. Impossible. Oh, I love you. Man. Embodied indivisibility exists in naturalness and originality, a cellular celebration that is radiant with the magnificence of creation. It blooms and grows in freshness and harmony, sacred, graceful, divine. The only unnaturalness, and I hesitated using that word, but I think I'm going to. The only unnaturalness on the face of the earth is the belief in separation and division. And honest to God, it's like a plague on her. This is the obscuration, the only obscuration. War is not endemic to the earth. The warring of the opposites exists only in the aspect of mind that believes in a separate self. I mean, she's basically in a hospice condition and she's still like feeding us. There's no conflict there. I mean, she is an enlightened being. Earth, Mama Earth. The divided mind, indicative of assumed personhood, is an agent of good and an agent of bad. In this realm, the mind, through conditioned, reactive, reflexive self-consciousness, the kind of consciousness that goes out, experiences, comes back and talks about it, how it should, would, could, all the stuff. That kind of consciousness is in a constant state of creating through belief the world of good and bad, right and wrong, this and that, conflict, division, war, opposition. When this conditioned reflex has stopped, and there is a recognition of oneself as that which is unknowable and undeniably present. Unknowable and present. Then the mind begins to return to its unconditioned nature as a silent, timeless avenue of awareness. Not a creator of bad and good, an avenue of awareness. An awakened intelligence that is beyond any condition or notion. An instrument of the ground of being. The drum of Shakti Ma. One's humanity as a shining expression of the sustaining, maintaining, infinite, ever-isness. That which is not of itself an experience, but illuminates all experience, it gifts experience. It's a gift. The creative source of all, its nature is wholeness, harmony. It naturally moves as this, in this way. It's a wayless way. Do you see what I mean? It's beyond instinct, it's the nature of it. The only impediment to embodiment of wholeness is a separate sense of self that believes and a personal will that assumes that it can have, be, use, entreat, appease, or do something for source. The separate someone believes that it will somehow survive as a separate something doing God's work. You get that? Do you get that? Do we get that the flip side of unworthiness is specialness? And do we watch that happen? No one wakes up to awakened mind. Awareness awakens to itself as itself. And heaven is spread on the earth for those who have the eyes. And it matters how we see it. Literally. Like I mean that literally. It matters. Matters how we see it. So I think that I know here, even after deep glimpses, and not just glimpses, like periods of time where it was very felt stabilized as absorption, then what has not been is not free. It's not liberated. It's still conditioned and limited. Begins to move into consciousness so that it too may freely come and go. And I see that we get a little bit off the track with that because I think it is hard to make peace with that phase where the two rivers of stages, or even three, or whatever, are running together. So it feels like you have one foot in, one foot out, sort of feeling. Or how can this still be happening with this realization? And then those deepest seeds, those deepest roots of identification, who are there to enable survival, it's actually pretty heroic, want to grab to keep it safe, to give some sort of solid ground. And the mystery is not solid ground. The mystery will never be solid ground. Somebody left a note up here about saying more about the foxes have their dens, the birds have their nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. It's a free fall of unknowable mystery in absorption. Nothing is known. Nothing is known. It's very disorienting. And so, of course, there will be kind of this movement in consciousness that's a very subtle and pretty deep grab, because it's like primal. It's primal to grab onto something when you're free falling and nothing has nothing. And that too, we must somehow, through these gifts of this tradition and other traditions that are saying the same thing, and masters and Sangha and each other, that too must be surrendered and made peace with. Otherwise, we kind of find ourselves in a cul-de-sac, which is fine too, but it hurts, especially at that level of consciousness. It's a really different kind of pain than like stage one that Ani was talking about yesterday, where it's just, there's been no glimpse. It's still a very consolidated me. Adya says it, Dr. Hawkins says it, as you transcend the levels of consciousness. I don't mean in any kind of special way, just as it unfolds, as consciousness, as awakenedness unfolds in consciousness. When you get off track, it's like instant karma. It hurts. It really hurts. So I have a lot of people coming to, speak through the one-on-ones and at retreat about this feeling like, one foot in what Ani would call samsara, and one foot in this no self, we might call it, selflessness, no personhood, or at least the eroding of it is concurrently happening as Sharon always called them, the remnants of that which still believes in division and unworthiness and separation and all that kind of stuff are appearing in consciousness. And it feels kind of wild, chaotic to a lot of people, or what I see is a tendency to want to grab onto some kind of identity in that. Want to identify it as something that one is. Or a spirit, I think that's where the spiritual ego kind of dawns. Or wanting just fully to get off the path, and you're way too far for that to happen. You're not in the driver's seat at that point. So then to come as a guide or a teacher and say, it's joy, it's peace, it's love, And yet, in those phases here, that kind of compass was very helpful. Very, very, very helpful. A compass of the masters, I guess we could say, the teachings that says, keep going, keep going. There are phases of fire meeting fire. Fire meeting fire. Alchemical burning down of the house. Revolution. It's a revolution of being. It's a revolution. And yet, we see the liberation all around us. Some people think this is kind of a cliche example, but for me it's just a never-ending source of instruction and inspiration. The way the caterpillar just freely goes freely goes into the dark, fully dissolves to emerge completely metamorphosis. You know, I think the the mind of personhood, the divided mind would be like pacing the parking lot going, well, maybe. Maybe. Maybe I'll unclutch and bloom. Maybe. There's still that fear, I think, and anxiety. And it's not to be judged. That's just more of the divided mind deciding something's good, something's bad, something's right, something's wrong. That's of that aspect of mind. It's to be understood so that that compassion that naturally arises as the ground recognizes itself is free-flowing, instantaneous, spontaneous. I mean, we've probably all judged ourselves so harshly, it's kind of hard to imagine. We can't imagine it, that's the thing. It's beyond imagination. But this arising compassion that is not different or separate from us in any way is, well, we've felt it, right? It's a kind of indescribable when it dawns as grace in the midst of something deeply unsettling or painful or not understandable, or when you're judging very harshly, and all of a sudden something else sort of sees, understands, embraces. Something so far beyond this woulda, shoulda, coulda, unworthy, special devotion to personhood. And what was very surprising here, one of the biggest surprises, and there were a lot, as I know I'm preaching to the choir here, that in that total abandonment of I am something and I am someone. Just, okay. I mean, I just said yes, okay. In that total abandonment, then the fullness of this expression is so enjoyed. You know how personality is mostly judged? The expressiveness is enjoyed because it's like enjoyment enjoying itself. It has no arrogance to it. It's not like that. It's like that. It's like this. Why not? Why not? You know, we're asking why, and then eventually it evolves to a liberated why not. And those gatekeepers of that are held in the judging aspect of the mind, the dividing mind, the separate mind, that those gatekeepers that we've held for so long about morals and the Ten Commandments and all of that, which are, all the yamas and niyamas, all very needed at a certain level of consciousness. I mean, when you're just willing to, batter anybody in anything for the sake of your own agenda, you need some guidelines, like laws and all that. And we all understand that, but eventually, when that falls away of its own accord, as consciousness wakes up and unfolds, it moves as itself, for itself, by itself, through itself, from itself. So it doesn't need guidelines about, let's be nice. Do you hear what I'm saying? It naturally would, if anybody can think of a good metaphor for that, I want it, because the only one that ever comes to mind is like, and these are, sort of down home, but that's me. You're chopping food in the kitchen and you chop off the end of your finger and you do that. That's not thinking about anything. That's not instinct. That's not compassion. That's not anything. That's just natural. Naturally taking care of the owie. It's so beyond. I mean, that gate. It's, and it continues to unfold even more beyond. It's like emptier, fuller. When it first was beginning here, I remember Sharon saying, "You'll catch on to the rhythm." We catch on to the rhythm of it. The more, the usefulness of a vessel or of a reed is its emptiness. It can be fuller the more empty, the more hollow. That's its usefulness. That's its dharma. That's its gift and its expression of beauty, original, the eyes, ears, hands of God. So that this sensory experience can be, wow. I mean, the sense here was, I never want to close my eyes again. Prior to that, it was like, I need 10 hours of sleep, get me off the planet, I mean, I remember those days of just like, oh my God, thank God I get to go to bed, turn off consciousness. To, I never, ever want to close my eyes again. Whoa. It's stunning. I mean, so beyond imagination, vision, co-creation. It's I don't know why it happens, but the Christian stuff comes in. It's glory to God in the highest. And peace to the people on earth. So that we, in this time, I will say I have to rebel a little bit. I told the Kenpo too, against it's going to take eons. I am Aquarian and I like the electric lightning. Let's go, people. So, I don't know. I have no idea. But I feel the sense of the same sense I felt when I was pregnant with my daughter. A sense of emerging, I can't know. I had no idea what labor, delivery, the child, any of that would be. You have no idea, but your body's in total service to it. Even though it's beyond any kind of understanding. Of its own accord, it is in service to life. And bringing the life, and that's how it feels. That's the sense. So I don't mean that in a specialness, let's go out and be crusaders and co-creators and all the rest. It's just the sense here. That we're coming in to what I guess Eckhart Tolle would call the new earth. And I've heard Sharon say the availability is, so much more available and potent than, at least in her experience, it's ever been. Here we are, so I feel like it's a time to speak of it. I understand the it's going to take a while. I'm at the end of the hallway, barely getting up, from the sense of, like, it feels like a caution to, like, that grabbing ego piece that could co-opt it, you know, and start thinking it's using creation somehow, or giving something to God. The usefulness is in the emptiness. Although it may be very disorienting and assuredly will be totally unknown, pretty much at all times, it's a responsive immediacy that dawns. That's been very hard to describe, but that's the closest I've come so far. It's a kind of non-reflective, in that self-consciousness way, responsive immediacy. It's not a flow state. It's a way, a condition of being, a way that is beyond personhood and somebody deciding, believing, limiting, conditioning. I mean, the image is like that aspect of the mind is kind of like a cookie cutter, or like one of those factories that is making molds, you know what I mean? And here comes the flow of suchness in all of its glory and ability and potentiality and possibility. Anything's possible, and we're like, ching, ching. It's that, ching, ching. It's that, ching, ching. You know, it's kind of crazy. So I really understand very intimately, personally, the disorientation and the kind of, even if we're aware of it, there's like a subtle kind of primal, Adya used to call it existential, grab, when we get this close to sailing the ship of liberation, where the freedom is so far beyond good and bad into responsive immediacy that one will not know. Only the moment will inform, only the moment, not the conditioned memory, not the ching, cookie. I only have these 5 cookie cutters, so I can only make these 5 shapes. I mean, I think it was Jesus of Nazareth that said, I will show, there will be things the eyes have never seen. Expressions beyond any kind of knowingness. Who knows what love has in store? I mean, that is the joy. Who knows what love has in store? I mean, things the judging mind would call miracles. Expressions beyond the laws of physical reality. I mean, I don't know if there are any other quantum physics geeks in here. I mean, Einstein was my first guru, but I'm serious. I loved him so much, and I really understood what he was saying, and I have posters of him on my wall in my teenage bedroom. Such a geek, you know, but oh well. You know, now they're at the ability of technology to actually see the power that is held in the vacuum of space. And if we could actually download, which is the exact same thing we're talking about here, space becoming matter. Even just one little packet of that, it would meet all of our energy needs for generations. Space, the final frontier. No. That's the enlivened current of joy, though. I mean, as it expresses from that vacuum, that emptiness, total. We say void. It's not the greatest word. You can't describe it. You can sense it. And then through that, Shakti, the cosmic dancer, it comes into being. I think this is why the indigenous, my indigenous friends, and I've read some of the Hopi stuff, are saying to dance and sing at this time of supposed apocalypse. So it's kind of it's gonna be mind-boggling. That's it. It's gonna be mind-blowing. It's like, that's the nature of it, that's the virtue of it. And we have to give way. Give way. It's a natural, it's like abiding in freely in the coming and going so that nature can take its course and can move as that. So that's why we train, really. That's true meditation. As Adya says, pure wordless surrender. And the joy is so, it's so unimaginable, and in this case was and continues to be a little bit, honestly, so overwhelming to the physicality. Still adapting, still rewiring. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of rewiring here. Maybe I think some physicalities just like, get it. Glory, hallelujah. Next time. Because the rewiring has been real fierce here on the physical level. It's a fierce thing. And we can talk more about that. I'm going to read something to end, and then I thought we could take a little break, and then I'd like to do a guided meditation. Because we break at noon, right? Okay. So I'm bringing in Hafiz again because why not? The Sufis really language it the most closely to the direct experience here. Somehow I'm just wired up that way. We carry all the ingredients to turn existence into joy. Mix them, mix them, mix them. How did the rose ever open its heart and give to this world all its beauty? It felt the encouragement of light against its being. Otherwise, we all remain too frightened. The separation has disappeared from beneath my feet. It fled from all my ecstasy. Now, like a singing air creature, I feel the roads keep opening. What is the root of all these words? One thing: love. But a love so deep and sweet, it needs to express itself with scents, sounds, colors that never before existed. Let us be like falling stars in the day sky. Let no one know of our sublime beauty as we hold hands with God and burn into a sacred existence that defies, that surpasses every description of ecstasy and love. I speak because every cell in this body is singing out for God. If you think I'm having more fun than anyone on this planet, you're absolutely correct. But Hafiz is willing to share all his secrets on how to befriend God. If the falling of a hoof ever rings the temple bell, if a lonely man's final scream before he hangs himself and the nightingale's perfect lyrics of happiness all become an equal cause to dance, then the sun has at last parted its curtain before you. God has stopped playing child games with your mind and dragged you backstage by the hair, shown to you the only possible reason for this bizarre and spectacular existence. Go running through the streets, create divine chaos, make everyone and yourself ecstatically mad, for the friend's beautiful open arms go running through this world, giving love, giving love, giving love. Hafiz. He's so great, huh? Okay. We'll see what happens, but generally, the guided meditations here have a lot of time where there's no talking. And so if the mind becomes really active or wandering, or you kind of get lost and think like, where were we? What were we talking about? No worries, just as a kind of maybe guideline to just fall back and down and in and listen, 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 listen. Open field listening. I was thinking that we were going to go to the how space comes in through the central channel and arises up, but I'm really getting the deep movement here of going to the heart, because the heart, all this relearning and dissolving away and letting go of and surrendering that happens in the mind, so for the uncovering, the opening of the curtains, is naturally occurring readily in the heart, and we experience it all the time. We just don't go there very often. Because it's so raw, it's so palpable. But it's the expression of that, and it's the ground of wholeheartedness. So anyway, if something occurs that feels very resonant and relevant for you as you're listening, and maybe I'm saying something, so you think, oh, what's she saying? Maybe I should follow that. I would go where that is pulling. Come, 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 come. The transmission is here, so follow the words if that's great for a certain kind of mind. Following the words is really helpful, but also the direct experiences, the mana. Okay, bell at the beginning, bell at the end, that's right. Well, let's begin by just in kind of a focused, but with that kind of focus that is also a soft gaze. It's focused, it's here, it's vital and alert, but also soft and open and gentle. With that kind of orientation, we bring the attention to the center of the chest. And we can feel from this center of, the deep heart in the center of the center of the center of the center. It's reflected in the gross anatomy, but it's also in the subtle body and beyond. So if the attention is drawn farther and farther and further and further in and in and in, that is kind of the sensation. But we can also sense that the support, the rising up, the rootedness of the heartfulness below and above. So just sense into that, like there's this deep center in the center of the chest, behind the physical heart and in front of the spine, but also it is fed, you might say. There's this current of effervescent enlivenedness from below, and it feels deep and earthy and solid and stable. And above, it's coming up from the ground, down, and also downward as it almost feels like, and you please look into your experience, but like a golden embrace, a comfort coming from above, a stability coming from below. So it's not just sitting out there in the center of the chest all on its own. You can feel the flow from all the directions, sort of mingling and congregating, communing right here in the center of the chest. There might be a sense of just wanting to rest. Just rest here. Or that one may encounter a fire that is inviting maybe some of the misconceptions, misperceptions, mistaken identities. It's so naturally of its nature compassionate here. Where there's nothing to forgive. Next moment, best moment. There's something about bringing a focused
presence that is without an agenda to very precisely to this area of the anatomy. Sensing very deeply how the roots of the heart from below and sort of the crown of the heart above. And the attention is generally wanting to move. That's what attention does generally. So this is where we bring that meditative absorption, one-pointedness. Joy, compassion, all of it. The lovingness that is has no obscuration here. It's just freely experienced and expressed. And can we feel how when the heart is deeply rooted in the ground of unknowable but undeniable presence, and also open to this divine inspiration coming down, the ascended beings, the divine assistance, that this sense inside of the heart is one of its capacity is unimaginable. It's beyond that personal heart that can break, and which is beautiful, but this is beyond that. This is the capacity of joy, wholeheartedness, unconditioned compassion, uncaused love. This is the capacity to be amongst and amidst all of life's circumstances, but also, although totally, completely, absolutely present, untouched, unaffected in a fundamental way. So it's not in denial of any of the personal heart's joys and sorrows and all the comings and goings of a full life. But it is beyond all of that and has the capacity for a redemptive kind of love beyond personal agenda and conditions. Deeply, deeply, solidly rooted in absolute presence and open to the ineffable, inexpressible, divine, the Divine Mother, the Giver. It's a feet on the ground, hands to heaven, open-heartedness that is by nature fearless, by nature. So one begins to, as we really settle in to this deep, deep heart, the heart of the heart, we see it everywhere, and we sense it everywhere in the physical body, in that rhythm, that pulse of potential and life and joy and love that is circulating and drumming and pulsing throughout this physical body and existence, of which they are the same. And all the trillions and trillions of cells within our body, our bodies, and all of the incomprehensible, infinite amount of atoms are dancing and creating, pulsing with this current. Boom, 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 boom. No resistance here, no defense. It begins to be much more captivating than the narrative of the personal self. So just a reminder to keep the quiet, please, for everyone's sake, and for respect for the container.